You want to know how I managed to blow up my entire marriage over some stupid photos? I'm still trying to figure that out myself. I'm Lauren, 29, and my life is currently falling apart over a box I should have thrown out years ago. It started last month when Ethan and I were packing up our apartment for the move to our new place. We'd been married for 5 years, and things were, well, they were fine, I guess. Ethan was always the stable one, reliable, predictable, safe. He was sorting through our closet in Denver when I heard him go quiet. That weird kind of quiet that makes your stomach drop. What's this? He was holding this old shoebox I'd kept pushed to the back of my closet. I recognized it immediately and felt my face get hot. It was my Ryan box, full of photos, letters, and little gifts from my college boyfriend. My first real love. Oh, that's just some old stuff from college, I said, trying to sound casual while mentally kicking myself for not hiding it better. Ethan opened it before I could stop him, and his face just changed. He pulled out a stack of photos, some of them showing a little more of Ryan and me than my husband needed to see. Photos I'd specifically promised Ethan I'd destroyed before our wedding. "You told me you got rid of all this," he said quietly, flipping through concert tickets, birthday cards, and this little silver necklace Ryan had given me for our first anniversary. I could see Ethan's shoulders tensing up as he found the handwritten letters. "It's not a big deal," I said, grabbing for the box. "It's just memories. It doesn't mean anything." But even as I said it, I knew that wasn't entirely true. Why else would I have kept that stuff hidden for years? Ethan looked at me like I'd slapped him. "If it doesn't mean anything, why did you keep it? And why did you lie about getting rid of it?" I felt cornered and got defensive. "You're being way too sensitive about this. It's literally just some old photos and stuff. It's part of my history. What am I supposed to do, pretend Ryan never existed?" That's when Ethan got really quiet and just shook his head. "No, but I thought I was your present and future, not some guy you dated in college." I rolled my eyes, annoyed that he was making such a big deal about this when we had an entire apartment to pack. "Don't be so dramatic. It's not like I'm still talking to him or something." Another lie, I'd been following Ryan on my secret Instagram account for years. Not that Ethan needed to know that. We spent the rest of the day packing in tense silence. I kept waiting for Ethan to get over it, but he barely spoke to me at dinner. He didn't even look at me. When bedtime came around, he grabbed a pillow and said he'd sleep on the couch. "Seriously?" I asked, getting irritated. "You're this upset over some old mementos?" "It's not about the photos, Lauren. It's that you kept them and lied about it. What else are you telling me?" If he only knew. I went to bed alone that night, annoyed that Ethan was being so insecure. In the darkness, I found myself thinking about Ryan for the first time in a while. I wondered what he was up to these days. Last I checked, he was going through a divorce and had moved back to Boulder. Not that I was keeping tabs on him or anything. The next morning, Ethan was already up and packing when I woke up. His eyes were rimmed with red, like he hadn't slept much. I tried to act normal, making coffee and chatting about the move, but he just gave me one-word answers. "Are we really going to let this stupid box ruin our move?" I finally asked. Ethan looked at me for a long moment. "Do you ever think about him?" he asked quietly. "No," I lied. "That was years ago." "I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this. Then why keep it all?" He wasn't letting this go. "I don't know, Ethan. Because it's mine? Because I'm allowed to have keepsakes? Why do you still have your high school football trophies?" I was getting frustrated now. "That's not the same thing, and you know it," he said, closing up a box of books with more force than necessary. I just walked away. He was being ridiculous, and I didn't have time for this. We had a million things to do before the move. As I headed to the bedroom to pack more clothes, I grabbed my phone and, without thinking, opened my secret Instagram account. Ryan had posted a new photo at some trendy downtown restaurant in Boulder. He looked good, really good. I caught myself smiling at the screen and quickly closed the app when I heard Ethan coming down the hall. I'd be lying if I said I never thought about Ryan. He was my everything in college, 3 years of intense, passionate love that I thought would last forever. We met sophomore year at a campus party in Fort Collins, and it was that instant, movie-type connection. Ryan was charismatic, creative, and had these plans to conquer the world with his talent. Everyone wanted to be around him, but he chose me. I never felt for Ethan what I felt for Ryan. That sounds terrible, I know, but it's true. Ryan and I broke up when he got that amazing job offer across the country in Austin. He asked me to come with him, but I just lined up my first real job and wasn't about to give that up. We said we'd try long distance, but I ended things after 3 months. It was too hard. I met Ethan a year later at work in Colorado Springs. He was steady, reliable, and genuinely nice to me. After the emotional roller coaster with Ryan, Ethan's predictability was comforting. We moved in together after 8 months and got engaged a year after that. Fast, but it felt right at the time. I never fully deleted Ryan from my life, though. I told Ethan I did, but I kept tabs on him through a separate Instagram account he didn't know about. Ryan was doing really well for himself. His career had taken off, and based on his posts, he was making serious money now. Way more than Ethan, who'd been stuck at the same position for years. Ethan had been acting weird lately, even before finding the box, more withdrawn, quieter. Sometimes I'd catch him just staring at nothing, and he'd started taking these long walks alone. He called it clearing his head. But I found some antidepressant pills in his gym bag last week. I never mentioned them to him. What was I supposed to say? It was easier to just pretend I hadn't seen them. That night, I did something I'd been thinking about for months. I sent Ryan a message, just a casual, "Hey stranger. Saw you're back in town," kind of thing. No big deal, right? Wrong. Because Ryan responded immediately. And just seeing his name pop up on my screen made my stomach flip in a way Ethan had never managed. Lauren Carter. Thought you fell off the face of the earth. Married life keeping you locked down? You're out. I smiled at my screen. Something like that. How have you been? We messaged back and forth for hours. I told him about the move, but conveniently left out any mention of how happy I was with Ethan. Ryan told me about his divorce, how his ex didn't understand his ambition, how she tried to change him. I remembered thinking Ethan had tried to change me too, making little comments about my spending habits or how much I posted on social media. By the time I realized how late it was, Ethan was already asleep on the couch again. Ryan had suggested meeting for coffee to catch up properly. I replied with "I'd love that" before putting my phone away, feeling excited in a way I hadn't in years. The coffee meetup with Ryan was supposed to be quick and casual, just old friends catching up. I told Ethan I was meeting my coworker Megan for lunch. The lie came so easily, I surprised myself. I spent an hour getting ready, changing outfits 3 times before settling on a dress I hadn't worn in ages, one Ryan had always liked on me in college. I even dug out the little silver necklace he'd given me, the one from the memory box. The moment I saw Ryan waiting at the cafe in Boulder, my heart did a stupid little flip. He looked even better in person than in his photos, confident, successful, with this energy Ethan had never possessed. He hugged me a little too long, and I let him. "There she is," he said, looking me up and down with a smile that made me feel 20 again. "Marriage looks good on you, Lauren." We fell into conversation like no time had passed. Ryan talked about his company, his travels, his new condo in downtown Boulder. I found myself downplaying my life with Ethan, making vague comments about work and the move, avoiding mention of my husband when possible. "So, be honest," Ryan said, leaning in close. "Are you happy? Like, really happy?" I hesitated just long enough for him to notice. "Of course," I said, not meeting his eyes. Ryan reached across the table and touched my hand. "You never were a good liar, Lauren." Our coffee stretched into 3 hours. By the end, we'd made plans to meet again the following week. As I was leaving, Ryan said something that stuck with me. "You know what I always called your husband in my head? The incel who got lucky." He laughed like it was an inside joke we'd been sharing for years. I should have defended Ethan. Instead, I laughed too. When I got home, Ethan was waiting with takeout and a peace offering. He'd found a framed photo of us from our honeymoon to hang in the new place in Aspen. The gesture should have touched me. Instead, I felt irritated, like he was trying too hard. "How was lunch with Megan?" he asked. "Fine," I said, heading to the bathroom to wash Ryan's cologne off my skin. Our move-in date was approaching fast, but I found myself creating excuses to meet Ryan again and again. Coffee turned into lunch. Lunch turned into drinks after work. Each time, I lied to Ethan about where I was going and who I was with. Ethan was trying so hard to fix things between us. He suggested couples therapy, planned date nights, started cooking my favorite meals, but I was already slipping away from him, already imagining a different life. Ryan and I kept our meetups casual at first, but there was always this undercurrent of something more. He'd touch my arm when laughing, text me late at night asking what I was wearing. I knew where this was heading, and I wasn't stopping it. Things with Ethan were tense, but tolerable as we finally moved into the new townhouse in Aspen. I'd saved Ryan's number under Megan Work in my contacts, but Ethan seemed suspicious anyway. "You've been texting Megan a lot lately," he said carefully. "We're working on a big project together." I lied, password protecting my phone the moment he left the room. Ryan and I were meeting almost every other day by this point. I'd tell Ethan I was working late or meeting girlfriends, and he'd just nod, this defeated look in his eyes that made me feel momentarily guilty before I pushed the feeling away. One night, after particularly strong cocktails, Ryan and I crossed the line I'd been inching toward for weeks. His downtown condo in Boulder was everything our new townhouse wasn't: sleek, modern, impressive. He kissed me as soon as the door closed behind us, and I didn't stop him. I didn't even think about Ethan until much later, when I was getting dressed to go home. "You're not happy with him," Ryan said, watching me from the bed. "You never were. You settled, Lauren." His words stung because they contained the truth I'd been avoiding. I got home late that night, expecting Ethan to be asleep. Instead, he was sitting in the dark living room, waiting. Something about his posture sent alarm bells ringing in my head. "Work thing run late?" he asked, his voice flat. "Yeah, sorry. Should have texted." I kept my distance, afraid he'd smell Ryan's cologne on me despite my quick stop at a gas station bathroom to freshen up. "Funny, because I dropped by your office around 6 o'clock to surprise you with dinner. They said you'd left early today." My stomach dropped. "I met Megan after. Stop lying to me." Ethan's voice cracked with emotion. "I saw you, Lauren. I saw you with him at Mountain View Bar. I saw how he touched you. How you looked at him." I froze, panic rising in my chest. "You followed me?" "I didn't have to follow you. I was meeting my brother for a drink when I saw you two walk in together." Ethan's eyes were red-rimmed, his hands shaking slightly. "How long has this been going on?" Instead of apologizing or even acknowledging what I'd done, I went on the offensive. "This wouldn't have happened if you hadn't made such a big deal about those stupid photos. You pushed me away, Ethan. You made me feel guilty for having a past." "A past?" Ethan stood up, his voice rising. "This isn't about your past. It's about right now. It's about you lying to my face every day. What was I supposed to do? You've been so depressed lately, so clingy and insecure." Because I knew something was wrong, he ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "I knew you were pulling away. I just didn't want to believe you were cheating on me." I flinched at the word cheating. It made what I'd done sound so ugly. "It's not like that," I insisted. "Ryan and I are just reconnecting as friends." Ethan laughed bitterly. "Friends don't look at each other the way you two were looking at each other." He pulled out his phone and showed me his secret weapon, a photo of Ryan and me entering his apartment building together earlier that night. "You've been spying on me?" I gasped, trying to grab his phone. "My brother took it. He recognized Ryan from our wedding photos when you pointed him out as your college friend." Ethan's voice was filled with quiet rage. "Were you ever going to tell me, or just keep lying indefinitely?" I felt cornered. "You're overreacting. We're just what, Lauren? Just sleeping together? Just destroying our marriage?" I had no defense, so I attacked instead. "Maybe if you were more exciting, more ambitious, more like Ryan," Ethan finished for me. "That's what this has always been about, hasn't it? You never got over him." The truth hung between us like a physical thing. I couldn't deny it anymore, not with the evidence literally in his hands. "I think I'm pregnant," I blurted out, the lie forming spontaneously in my desperation. Ethan's face went completely blank. For a moment, I thought my Hail Mary had worked. Then he looked at me with such sadness it took my breath away. We haven't slept together in over 3 months, Lauren. The week after Ethan discovered my affair was surreal. He moved his things into the spare bedroom and barely spoke to me. I kept waiting for him to yell, to demand a divorce, to do something, but he just existed alongside me in painful silence. Ryan was less enthusiastic about meeting up now that my marriage was imploding. Maybe we should cool things for a bit, he suggested when I called him crying after another silent dinner with Ethan. Just until you figure things out at home. I felt like I was losing everything at once. Ethan was slipping away, and Ryan was showing his true colors. He'd loved the chase, the forbidden nature of our reconnection, but actual commitment? That wasn't what he wanted. One evening, Ethan finally broke his silence. I need some space to think, he said, packing a small bag. I'm going to stay with my brother for a few days. You're leaving me? I asked, suddenly terrified of being alone with my choices. I'm taking space, he corrected, to decide if there's anything left to save here. While he was gone, I tried desperately to reach Ryan, but he was suddenly busy, with work, with life, with everything but me. I drove by his condo one night and saw him helping a woman out of his car, attractive, laughing, touching his arm the way I had just days before. When Ethan returned a week later, he looked different, calmer, more resolved. He sat me down at our kitchen table, his eyes clear and focused in a way I hadn't seen in months. I've made a decision, he said quietly. Either you cut all contact with Ryan, delete your secret social media accounts, yes, I know about those too, and we go to marriage counseling, or I'm done. I felt a flash of indignation. You're giving me an ultimatum? After all your talk about space and thinking things through, you're just going to dictate terms to me. These aren't terms, Lauren. These are boundaries. I can't stay in a marriage with someone who doesn't respect me enough to be faithful or honest. You're being controlling, I accused. This whole thing started because you couldn't handle that I kept a few mementos. This isn't about the photos. Ethan's composure cracked briefly. This is about you actively cheating on me and then lying about it to my face. This is about you pretending to be pregnant to manipulate me. I think I could be pregnant, I insisted, doubling down on the lie. Ethan just looked at me sadly. If you are, is it even mine? The question hit me like a slap. I hadn't actually considered that my lie might backfire this spectacularly. Of course it would be yours, I said, my voice small. Lauren, we both know that's not true. Ethan stood up and walked to the living room, where he started gathering his things. I've already talked to a lawyer. I'll be staying with my brother until I find a place of my own. The reality of what was happening suddenly hit me. Ethan was actually leaving. My stable, secure life was falling apart, and Ryan wasn't stepping up to catch me. Wait, I said, panic rising. We can work this out. I'll stop talking to Ryan. I'll go to counseling. Whatever you want. Ethan paused, a framed photo of us in his hands. That's the problem, Lauren. You're only saying that because you're scared of being alone, not because you actually love me or want our marriage to work. That's not true, I protested. But we both heard the hollowness in my voice. I deserve better than being someone's backup plan, Ethan said, placing the photo face down on the table. And honestly, so do you. I watched in shock as he methodically packed his essentials. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Ethan was the stable one, the one who always forgave me, the one who stuck around no matter what. You can't just throw away 5 years of marriage, I said, following him from room to room. I'm not the one who threw it away, Lauren. You did that when you started seeing Ryan behind my back. Within an hour, Ethan had packed his car with suitcases and boxes. He handed me a business card for his lawyer and looked around our townhouse in Aspen one last time. I really did love you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I hope you figure out what you actually want. And then he was gone. The reality of being alone hit me hard that first night. I called Ryan repeatedly, but he'd stopped answering. I even drove to his condo in Boulder, but the doorman wouldn't let me up. Mr. Hayes asked not to be disturbed, he said, with a look that told me I wasn't the first woman he'd turned away. I spent the next few days ignoring calls from work, scrolling through old photos of Ethan and me, wondering how everything had fallen apart so quickly. My lies about being pregnant were revealed when my period arrived, crushing any lingering hope that Ethan might come back out of obligation. When I finally reached Ryan, his response was devastating in its casualness. "Look, what we had was fun, Lauren, but I'm not looking for anything serious right now, especially not with someone who's going through a divorce." "But you said," I started. "I didn't say anything about us being together long term," he cut me off. "It was good to reconnect, but maybe we should take a step back now that your situation has changed." I was stunned. "You pursued me. You pulled me away from my marriage." Ryan laughed. "Come on, Lauren. You were looking for an escape hatch from that marriage long before I came back to town. I just happened to be convenient." After he hung up, I sat in our half-empty townhouse in Aspen, surrounded by moving boxes we'd never fully unpacked, and finally let myself cry, not just for losing Ethan, but for the realization that I'd thrown away something real for a fantasy that never existed. I found the box of Ryan mementos that had started everything and forced myself to really look at them. The photos, the letters, the gifts, they weren't treasures. They were anchors, keeping me tied to a past that had prevented me from fully committing to my present. Ethan's lawyer called to discuss division of assets. I learned Ethan had been documenting my affair for weeks, building a case with timestamps of my lies, photos of me with Ryan, even screenshots of conversations with mutual friends where I disparaged Ethan while idealizing Ryan. I tried reaching out to Ethan directly, hoping for a second chance now that Ryan had revealed his true nature. His response was a single text: "Please direct all communication through our lawyers." Sitting alone in what was supposed to be our fresh start in Aspen, I tried to make sense of how everything had gone so wrong. It would be easy to blame Ryan for seducing me or Ethan for overreacting about the photos, but in my more honest moments, I knew the truth. I had never fully committed to Ethan because I'd always kept one foot in the past, always wondering, what if, instead of investing in what is? I'd kept those photos and mementos not as innocent keepsakes, but as lifelines to a relationship I'd idealized beyond reality. But even with this realization, I couldn't bring myself to take full responsibility. Instead, I comforted myself with the thought that Ethan and I were probably incompatible anyway, that Ryan had just exposed cracks that were already there, that the photos were just a convenient catalyst for an inevitable end. As I boxed up the mementos to finally throw them away, I wondered if I'd ever learn to live in the present instead of chasing ghosts from my past. Probably not, if I'm being honest, but that's a problem for future Lauren to figure out.